Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. I'm the Reverend Lynn Gardner, and it works for me for folks to use she or they when referring to me in third person. And I'm delighted to serve alongside the Reverend Wendy Bartell as co-ministers of this congregation. When any of us refer to Wendy, please use Wendy's name instead of he, she, or they pronouns because Wendy identifies in and beyond the gender binary. If you aren't sure what that means, that is totally okay. And today is a great day for a conversation about that. Just connect with either of us after the service. If you're visiting us for the first time, we offer you an extra warm welcome. We hope that you can stay after the service for a time of conversation and connection. Conversations happen on Zoom. They happen here in the hall after religious education classes and worship, sometimes over a cup of something warm. This morning, Liam Decker will kindle our chalice as we share these words slightly adapted with permission from the Reverend Jennifer Grayson. It's called Drawn Together.
We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world for the better. Thank you. This morning, we joined with several congregations who are acknowledging Transgender Day of Remembrance, and/or this week leading up to it, known as Transgender Awareness Week. This is a great time for all of us to learn more about gender identity, the breadth of gender expression, gender non-conforming, non-binary, genderqueer, and transgender identities. Those of us who are part of the trans and gender expansive communities are often at higher risk for so much, including violence, simply for existing. And our lives are about to get much more challenging, perhaps, with the new administration headed to DC. But knowledge is power. And I know that some of you in this room don't really get the gender identity beyond the binary female-male thing. Lucky for you, though, the Rainbow Connections team will be leading a class using the UU Common Read, Authentic Selves, Celebrating Trans and Non-Binary People and Their Families. You can get the book through our UUA bookstore and start reading it now. It might even make a great holiday gift for someone. It's just story after story of lots of different families. You can watch for circuits for details about the class in the new year. And there are several folks in this congregation, including the two of us, who would be happy to answer your questions about pronouns, about gender fabulousness, about the ways that we can affirm one another's identities. Knowledge is a good antidote to fear. And it is a scary time. Lots of people in this congregation are themselves expanding the binary and/or are people who love someone who identifies beyond the binary boxes of male and female. And our faith teaches us that love is at the center.
November 20th, this coming Wednesday this year, is Transgender Day of Remembrance. Transgender Day of Remembrance was started in 1999 by transgender advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith as a vigil to honor the memory of Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was killed in 1998. The vigil commemorated all the transgender people lost to violence since Rita Hester's death and began an important tradition that has become the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. It is a time to remember transgender and other gender expansive folks. The tradition has continued, and this morning we will speak the names of the people who have been murdered since last year's remembrance. At least 30 people living their lives over 70% of them people of color, have been killed in the U.S. since last November. And that's just the ones we know about. As we speak their names, members of the Rainbow Connections team will light candles in honor of these beloved humans whose lives were tragically cut short. We will share their name, age, ethnicity, and state where their lives were ended. We'll go in chronological order, starting with the end of last November. Unless otherwise noted, the person was a transgender woman or girl. Savannah Williams, 38, Indigenous Latina, Minnesota, November 29th, 2023. Amber Minor, 40, Black, Missouri, December 24th. Megan Riley Lewis, 53, White, Maryland, December 27th. Lexis Walker, 43, Black, Virginia, December 30th. Kitty Monroe, 43, Latina, Arizona, January 1st, 2024. Sasha Williams, 36, Black, Nevada, January 26th. Africa Paria Garcia, 25, Latina, Puerto Rico, February 2nd. Reina Hernandez, 54, Latina, Washington, around March 8th. Diamond Cherish Brigman, 26, Black, Texas, on March 16th. Alex Franco, 21, a trans man whose ethnicity was not identified, Utah, around March 18th. Marexas Medina, 24, Latina, California, March 20th. T. Arnold, 36, Black trans man, Florida, April 7th. Nevaeh River Goddard, 17, non-binary white teen, Massachusetts, April 10th. Star Brown, 28, Black, Tennessee, April 19th.
Andrea Doria Dos Passos, 37, Latina, Florida, April 22nd. Keita B., 46, Black, Missouri. Jaslyn Johnson, 18, ethnicity was not named, Nevada, May 6th. Tay Dior Thomas, 17, Black, Alabama, May 7. Liara Kaylee Tsai, 35, White, Minnesota, June 22nd. Polly Likens, 14, White, Pennsylvania, June 23rd. Kenji Spurgeon, 23, Black, Washington, July 1st. Shannon Boswell, 30, Black, Georgia, July 5th. Monique Brooks, 49, Black, Florida, July 19. Dylan Gurley, 20, ethnicity not identified, Texas, July 24th. Vanity Williams, also known as Chanel Williams, 34, Black, Texas, August 3rd. Ty Lathan, 24, Black, Maryland, August 4th. Kasim Omar, 29, Somali, Ohio, September 6th. Red, also known as Barbie, 25, Black, Illinois, September 8th. Honey Daniels, 37, Black, Rochester, New York, October 3rd. Son Coleman, 48, Black, gender nonconforming, Georgia, October 19th. These lives were precious, and the details we shared are not the most important things about them. You can learn more about any of these folks by going online and learning more of their story. We share those statistical details so that we get a sense of just how widespread fear and hatred are, and how from age 14 to mid-50s, the trans community is impacted. We share a prayer from our friend and colleague, the Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf, in honor of Transgender Day of Remembrance. Sunshine writes, "We remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, and those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, and to a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety. May it be so."
My father had a special way of wrapping presents. I don't know where the idea came from, but given his propensity for creativity and his love of engineering, I can imagine that he came up with it all on his own. Each gift was first wrapped in a layer of tissue paper, neatly with creased edges and fitted corners, and then each end held securely in place by a small piece of Scotch tape. This was followed by a layer of newspaper, specifically the colored Sunday funnies, also folded neatly and held together by small pieces of Scotch tape. I admired and appreciated the care in wrapping and his trust in tiny pieces of Scotch tape. We know that many things cannot be held together with small bits of tape or even whole rolls of duct tape. Sometimes clips, magnets, bungee cords, screws, nails, a needle and thread, a stapler, or super glue will not get the job done. There are plenty of important and precious things like relationships, congregations, communities, and denominations that need something else to hold us together. Whether you have been part of Unitarian Universalism or this congregation for decades, or if this is your first Sunday with us, or somewhere in between, there is something that brought you here, that had you thinking or feeling, yeah, that's how I want to devote some of my time today. That's what I need. Or maybe that's where I'm needed. We know that each of us has choices about where we bring our energy, our time, our bodies, our children, our trust, our attention, our faith, our hopes, our tenderness, our commitments. We hope that you find a sense of belonging and meaning in what is shared here. And if you don't, we hope that you find a place where you do, because we know that finding that can be life-changing and life-saving. And for those who do find a sense of belonging and meaning and community, we ask, what holds us together? What holds us together as a congregation of atheists, agnostics, mystics, and theists? What is our moral and spiritual center? What holds us together as Unitarian Universalists? Some of us are followers of indigenous or other earth-centered traditions, such as UU pagans. Some are UU Christians or UU Muslims, UU humanists, UU Jews, UU Buddhists, or Unitarian Universalists without another designation. With all these theologies and perspectives and practices, what holds us together? And as we find ourselves in the aftermath of the election, perhaps an even more prudent question, what can pull us apart? This month, we've been exploring what it means to have a commitment to our UU values, particularly the values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, interdependence, and love at the center. In our experience, each of us cherishing and living these values can serve to hold us together. Yesterday, there was a convocation in Albany of New York UU Justice, a statewide legislative advocacy network. It was just another great example of how a commitment to justice in action can bring and hold us together.
And for months leading up to the election, thousands of Unitarian Universalists from all over the country poured energy into supporting democracy through our shared UU the Vote work. There were lots of different ways to be involved, and it was energizing to know that so many of us were working together, along with community partners in swing states and elsewhere. While many of us are heartbroken and very worried after the results, we are no less committed to being part of creating justice. We can't let disappointment or despair change our dedication. In the mid-1800s, Unitarian minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker wrote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eyes reach but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience, and from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." A century later, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. echoed these words, expressing his deep faith that our commitment calls us to be part of those who steadfastly help bend that arc toward justice. Justice work was one of the reasons why Universalists and Unitarians chose to merge in 1961. The leaders and delegates of both denominations knew they would be stronger together. Both had strong histories of working for social change, including abolition and suffrage, even as there were also people within both denominations who did not support those movements. Just 4 years after the consolidation in 1965, the Unitarian Universalist Association, as the story goes, had more clergy join Dr. King in Selma than any other denomination. Lay leaders were there as well in a shared commitment to co-creating justice. At yesterday's convocation in Albany, members of this congregation, including folks from the Green Sanctuary team and the Social Justice Action team, joined UUs from all over New York for workshops and worship to support collaboration and effective advocacy work grounded in our shared faith. Because there is so much at stake. Now, we all have some ideas from the campaign and also Project 2025, but we don't know exactly what January and the next 4 years will bring. We do know that if we value justice and recognize our interdependence, that we are called to act, to show up, to organize, to listen, and to stay committed for the long haul, grounded in our Unitarian Universalist identity and our values. Each of us doing what we can and resting when we need to. We have to pace ourselves. It's a long haul. We also know that through our commitment to justice, we will be asked to change. This commitment invites us to risk, to learn, to actively resist and uproot racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, classism, ableism, ageism, and all the other forms of oppression wherever they exist. These hurtful biases and prejudices exist within organizations, our larger society, and have influenced each of us as well. They can infect our perceptions, our thoughts, and our actions. That's why we name them so often, because these harmful views permeate every part of society, and each of us and all of us together need to stay vigilant to eradicate them from our hearts and our minds and our practices. This country, as you know, was formed and developed on a foundation of racist beliefs and policies and supported genocide and slavery that afforded women few or really probably no rights, that criminalized people who were queer, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and that didn't follow rigid gender norms, that welcomed some immigrants while simultaneously forcing some to leave their home and enslaving them in forced labor. None of this is news to us. And all of it, in their legacy, still is impacting us. All of it is still harmful in our society. And it is not the whole story, because there are other truths as well. Our values offer antidotes for healing and tools to build beloved community, but only if we put them into practice through our living. Our Unitarian Universalist values affirm that human beings are just one small part of a vast interdependent web, the invisible string, as it were. That transformation is possible, that justice and equity are worth working for, that pluralism is a strength and should be protected and celebrated, that through generosity we can cultivate gratitude and hope, and that love can be our foundation, our center, our North Star.
I wish that I could say that a commitment to living our values is easy and risk-free. No such luck. In my experience, it is sometimes challenging, uncomfortable, awkward. It is also a source of joy, meaning, and hope. Living our values can connect us and hold us together. In November of 2016, just before the election of that year, We had an opportunity to lean into our commitments when Wendy and I answered a call for clergy to go to Standing Rock to join the protests of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Unarmed water protectors had been tear gassed, shot at with rubber bullets, and sprayed with fire hoses in freezing temperatures. Many of their campsites were bulldozed. Helicopters flew over the remaining camps all night. Father John Floberg, a trusted ally of the Standing Rock Sioux, put out a call to clergy from any denomination who cares about what is happening to come to Standing Rock. We were asked to be witnesses, to listen, and to be in solidarity with the Lakota and Dakota people of Standing Rock and their allies. We were asked to show up, and I really didn't want to go. I had a long list of really good reasons why we should stay home. And I prayed, which is one of my practices. I listened. The words of a Rebecca Parker poem came to mind. Choose to bless the world. She wrote,
Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth. The chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting.
Even though we had long commitments to living our UU faith and our values out loud, I was hesitant. I looked at my long list of to-dos. It is one thing to have beliefs and values. It is another to risk our comfort, our privilege, our resources to join in solidarity with those who are at risk. And I realized I needed to go to Standing Rock. Our values clarified for me that we needed to say yes. Solidarity meant showing up with humility and following the lead of the Standing Rock Sioux to protect this sacred land from a destructive pipeline. A plane ride, a van ride, hours of being at camp, listening to the earth, singing by the river, listening to the elders, to faith leaders, to our own hearts. We were asked to grow, to learn a different way of being in the world. We were changed by our journey and by our time there at the Ocheti Shakowin camp.
In reading some of the reflections from that time, it was hard to put into words what we experienced. But it really did change us. And I'm so glad you changed your mind. It isn't always easy to make the right choice. The right choice is not always clear. Asking ourselves, our hearts, the God of our understanding, the great mystery, humankind, what is the right thing to do right now? Our lives and our faith will be tested these next several months or more. Having a Black Lives Matter banner on our front wall and an old, out-of-date, somewhat rainbow flag is a start. They matter, but it's nowhere close to enough for what's coming. It is one thing to declare our values, and we should continue to do that. It's another to put them into action, to take a risk, to interrupt someone doing or saying something harmful. We know that. We live in the same world you're living in. We know how hard that can be, especially now, especially when we see signs and flags in our neighbors' yards and we think, wow, what happened to our neighborly reaction, our neighborly relationship? And we all, every single one of us, will be needed to resist that which goes against our values. We all, every single one of us, will be needed to build resilience as we face the onslaught of hatred and bigotry that is to come. That is already started, actually. That has been with us our entire country's existence, if we're truthful. And if we engage in healthy practices, talking with one another, not about one another, following through on what we said we would do, or asking for help so that we can do it, noticing our growing edges where we feel discomfort and do our personal work, maybe some therapy, maybe pastoral care. When we set boundaries, when we care about one another without leaning into codependency, and when we truly center love in all that we do, which, by the way, are all of those other things, we will continue to find that our values and covenants will hold us together. I have faith in Unitarian Universalism, and I have faith in us. The Unitarian Universalist Association sent out a message earlier this week, perhaps late last week, that included some of these words. It's a much longer post. We, as in the Unitarian Universalist Association of which we are a member congregation, we will focus our efforts and abandon our distractions. We will create safe harbor for those in danger. We will leverage our resources. We will sharpen our skills and analysis. We will act as if no person is disposable. We will refuse the politics of division and despair. We will seek the wisdom of elders and of history. We will weave deeper connections with our neighbors. We will fight for our survival. And we will create the conditions of possibility for our thriving and liberation. may we each and may we together choose solidarity with that thriving and liberation. And may we each and may we all choose to bless the world. Amen. And blessed be.